Hey, this is Tyler with Analytive, and today I break down my own Facebook data and determine whether or not I think it's useful for advertising to me. Welcome to the Analytive Podcast. Hey, this is Tyler with Analytive, and today I'm going to tear down my Facebook data. So unless you've lived under a rock for about the past, 3 or 4 years, you will know that Facebook advertising is one of the biggest and most powerful advertising platforms available today. If you want to do any kind of interest targeting, if you want to target people using, like I said, interest, using demographics, using any kind of data, Facebook is one of the main platforms to do that. Facebook also recently has been in the news for some what we'll call privacy violations. They've had some issues with people accessing the data that shouldn't, and then it's starting to really start this national discussion about data. Who owns the data? Is it right for Facebook to own all this data? You know, what's their responsibility? And Google's kind of in the same boat, but today we're going to focus mostly on Facebook. So here's what I did. So I went on, and you can do this too, and I downloaded all of the data that Facebook has collected on me over the past probably 10 to 15 years, right? I've been using Facebook since approximately college, and so I went ahead and I downloaded all of the data, right? Every post I've ever made, every video, everything that I've really ever done on Facebook, I downloaded and I saved it locally to my computer. It's just under a gigabyte worth of data, so a pretty significant chunk of data. And today I want to take you through it, kind of figure out if the data is accurate, right? What is accurate? What is inaccurate? And most importantly, what is missing from the data? And then have a little discussion about privacy and things of that nature. So here we go. So what did I learn from a marketing standpoint on the Facebook data from my own data? Well, the first thing I learned is that the Facebook data is just okay. I was honestly a little underwhelmed, right? You hear a lot about how much data these big companies have on us and how they have access to so many things. And it's true. I mean, there's a lot that they have access to. But when it came to particularly interest in advertising targeting, I was just very, very underwhelmed. So what did Facebook actually get correct? Okay. Well, they got correct a lot of the big broad stroke issues. They got political affiliation, they got religious affiliation, and then they got people that I liked on Facebook. So I've liked, for example, Tony Robbins in the past. I've actually liked his page, shared some of his content. They got that. They got some artists and bands that I may have shared content with. And then they have a lot of broad interest categories. So web analytics, any brands that I really engage with and follow, celebrities, anybody I readily engage with on Facebook, it captured. So I'm not super surprised, right? I think generally the data that they captured on a broad sweeping standpoint is accurate. I'd say about 80 to 90% of it is accurate data that you could actually use to, to target somebody like myself via advertising. But that means that there's other stuff. So about 10% that I would consider incorrect, right? And I combed through a bunch of the interests and I pulled out some of them that I would consider generally incorrect. So for example, one of the funniest ones is ragamuffin cat. So I had to actually Google this because I'm not real sure what it is, but apparently a ragamuffin cat is a breed of cat. I don't even like cats. I mean, maybe at some point I shared a cat video, but I'm not sure how exactly they figured out that I liked ragamuffin cats. Another one is the Beach Boys, right? They said that I like the Beach Boys. That showed up in my interest targeting. No offense to the Beach Boys. I think they're a great band, but I can't remember, honestly, the last time I listened to a Beach Boys song. It's been a really, really long time. I don't think they're even on any current playlists that I have. So that one is just what I would consider wrong, right? You could hit me with the latest Beach Boys t-shirt or paraphernalia or cover band. I don't care at all, right? It's not something that would be a core interest of mine. Also, compact disc. Apparently, I like compact discs. Who still uses these, right? The last time, I bought a CD drive or a DVD drive a while back to actually have to, input some data off a DVD, and it was a huge nuisance. I think for me, CDs, not a huge fan, right? I prefer Spotify. I actually have a Spotify subscription, or Apple Music or whatever. Also have an interest of Midtown Atlanta. I've only been to Atlanta, I think about one time in my entire life, right? And it was for a conference there. And I'm sure I interacted with Atlanta in some ways. But if I was getting ads targeting Midtown Atlanta or that interest, again, it would just be a waste, basically completely useless. Also, it says that I like, quote, university, right? I'm a graduate of a university, a couple different universities, but I'm still not sure that I have any interest in that beyond the average user, right? What does university even mean as a targeting segment? I'm not sure. To me, that seems extremely broad. So, if you're looking at university graduates, yes, I would fit, but just, literally university, right? The single word. Also, violence prevention, right? So I am all about violence prevention. I think it's a really good thing, but I'm definitely not an activist, right? I believe in it theoretically, but I'm not somebody who practices or, really engages much with violence prevention. So like I said, I think it's a good thing. Not sure why it showed up in my ad targeting. Yeah, I don't know why I was uniquely targeted for that. And then the last one is shopping and fashion. This is also an incredibly broad category. So I do buy a lot of things on Amazon, but I spend less than $50 a month, like way less than $50 a month on clothes. It's just not something that's super important to me. So if it's really fashion driven, I am definitely not in the ideal market. So those are a few of the things that showed up that somehow Facebook had determined or has determined that those are interesting categories to me. I'm not sure where some of those came from. I mean, obviously, I've shared a lot of things. I've done a lot of things over the past, 15 years of using Facebook, but I would consider those all incorrect categories. Okay, so they got some broad sweeping things correct. They got some other things incorrect, but I think the most useful part to us is what's missing. Right. I mean, obviously, I know myself. I know my own interests. And so I started thinking about my life, my shopping habits, the things that I like, the music that I listen to. And I just made a quick list and I compared it to what Facebook actually said. And I think the really telling part is what's actually missing from the data. So here's one example. I've been on and off in the market for a new pickup truck, particularly a Ford, but I've looked at several other brands over the past year or so, right? I've been to dozens of websites. I've compared prices. I've been to Ford, Chevy. I've actually been in dealerships and taken test drives. But no pickup truck category, no truck, no, F-150, Nissan Titan, Chevy Silverado, none of those interests showed up. The closest one that they had was automotive, which is, again, I think unusably broad, right? Of course, I'm interested in automotive, but to me, that seems like a huge miss. And that's not something that I've tried to keep secret either. Maybe I haven't shared a lot of things on Facebook, but I've been to well over a dozen plus sites that have Facebook pixels installed, looking for new pickup trucks. So for me, it seems like a huge, huge, huge miss. Yeah, and then for entertainment, over the past year or so, I've listened to a lot of country music. Don't judge me, but I do love a little bit of really good country music. Lately, Thomas Rhett, for example, has been on my playlists a lot. No country artist or even country music as a category shows up in Facebook. And again, this has been going on actually probably longer than a year. Before that, I listened to a lot of Keith Urban. I play guitar. I really respect his guitar playing. Again, you don't have to like it, but the point is that that doesn't show up anywhere on Facebook. It's just missing, right? It doesn't show up. So I feel like that is a huge miss for me personally. There's a couple other areas. One is I've actually flown so many miles on one airline over the past year that I reached elite status on this particular airline. This airline is not listed. Neither is travel or airlines or anything related to airlines in general. It just isn't there, right? And I've traveled quite a bit. And then a lot of it has been to one particular city where my girlfriend lives. And nothing related to that city is listed in there as well. And I've had the Facebook app while a lot of that happened. So to me, that seems like another huge, huge, huge miss because I would be interested in events and things around that city. I've never liked any pages, but that seems like a really good demographic or, geographic really targeting that just isn't there. The other one is for about the past 2 years, I've done a lot of outdoor things, skiing, snowboarding, camping, hiking, outdoor related activities. None of that really shows up. Camping, hiking, nothing really is showing up in that category. I've bought tents, I've bought a lot of gear, everything from pocket knives to camelbacks to tents to boots. I mean, I've bought all those things online. I haven't been very secretive in that, and none of that data actually shows up either. So for me, I think the big thing is there's a lot of data missing. There's way more than I thought there would be. I expected Facebook to have a very complete profile of who I am and my interests and the interest targeting. I'm just really not seeing that. Okay. And I have a hunch about why that is, and I'll talk about that toward the end of the podcast. But yeah, there's missing a lot of data. Okay, so what about creepy things? Everybody talks about, the creepy part of Facebook. So I think the first one is if you go to past relationships, Facebook will actually show you all of the past relationships. So it listed me as in a past relationship with 3 different girls. These were all girls. Well, 2 of them I knew during college. One I was actually in a relationship with. One I was not. And then one I don't even know who she was. Like, I don't even recognize the name. And I wasn't drunk or anything during college. Like, it wasn't that I was out partying. Like, I honestly don't know where some of that data came from. So I think for me, that's really interesting, a little bit creepy. So it's only partially correct on that front though. Facebook also gives you a list if you download your data. It gave me a list of all the advertisers that I've given my contact info to over the past several years. That's a list of probably about 40 or 50 people, right? So that's a little creepy. Again, I've agreed to let them have my Facebook data, but still a little bit concerning, because once they have it, they basically have it. Facebook lists all the people I've ever poked. I haven't poked a lot of people. I think maybe 1 or 2 people ever, but then also all the people that poked me. If you aren't aware, apparently poking is still a thing on Facebook. I didn't even know, but apparently it is. And then Facebook also has a ton of my contacts' phone numbers. There's actually a whole area where I can go in and see the phone numbers for a lot of my contacts. Not a lot of recent contacts are in there. I actually did a search through some of them to see if I could find recent contacts, and I couldn't. So I'm not sure if this is pulling from my telephone or if this is actually pulling from the Facebook profiles of my friends. I think it's more the second one because of what's actually missing there in the data. So interesting nonetheless, but not something I'm super concerned about. But I also never had an Android. I know Android devices had a privacy issue where Facebook could actually get in and look at all the history of phone calls and texts and other contacts. So that could be why that my contact data isn't synced up properly, as maybe I've always been an Apple guy, so I have an iPhone at the moment. So what did I learn in all of this? Well, I think first of all that the Facebook data is okay, right? It's useful, but there's a lot missing. But after reviewing my data and really thinking over the past 10 or 15 years of my life, I'm convinced that Facebook had a really good picture of Tyler, the college student, but doesn't have that good of a picture of what's happened to me in the past, say, 5 years or so. Okay. Outside of marketing, which obviously I do a lot of, every other interest in my life wasn't really reflected in my Facebook interests. Now, I will say in college, I was obviously most active. Facebook was really just coming of age then. I shared a lot, engaged a lot, liked pages a lot. I don't do as much of that now. So maybe that has a little bit to do with it. But now they have the Facebook Pixel. They have all this advertising data. I would have thought the targeting would have been a lot better. So if you were targeting ads to Tyler 10 years ago, it has an amazing, amazing profile of me then, but it doesn't have an amazing profile of me now. I think that was the biggest shock, is I expected the data to be extremely relevant. But rather, for example, in college, I did a lot with music and music production using software. I still play guitar, but I was shopping a lot back then. All that data is reflected in my Facebook page. But for example, shopping for pickup trucks is not. I also do use Facebook less. So that could be a big part of the reason I'm less active on Facebook, especially posting. I still, engage with people once in a while, use it for messaging. But the data just seems old, right? And this is a sample size of 1. I understand that. Maybe if you have somebody who uses Facebook all the time and still uses it and shares and posts a lot, I'm sure the data would be much more accurate. But I just found that, I probably use social media about as much, maybe a little less than the average user. And that the data was just extremely inaccurate. So Here's what I'd love for you to do if you're willing. Go ahead and you can download your data. I'll put a link in the description to this podcast. It's very easy to do. If you just go into Facebook on your computer, hit that little triangle in the top corner, go to settings. And then in the settings at the bottom of the menu, it says download your data. Just download it, unzip it. It opens up as a web page. Look through it. I'd really like to hear your perspective on your data. Is it accurate? Right? Is it not accurate? What parts are accurate and inaccurate? And specifically, what's missing? Does it capture the essence of who you are? Because there's a lot of companies right now that are spending a whole lot of money on Facebook ads. Also, a lot of privacy things going on. But part of me wonders, how accurate is it, right? We're in 2018. And from what I've seen of my own data, it's not super accurate. So I'd love to hear what your data says about you. Anyways, this is Tyler with the Analytive Podcast. Thanks a ton for listening, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.